society. Cassie.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I was taking a nap. Tonight, I am announcing a gift to the Asian University of Women, which Cassie has supported for many years. As Cassie's womanomics research has shown, many great things can happen when women become educated. With all programs in the world today, some of the best money we can spend is to educate women. Cassie, here's the check. Can you show how can I figure on that?
Oh, too many. 7 figures.
It's $1 million tonight.
That was not planned, by the way.
My challenge is for all over to encourage your Parview and the business associate in Japan to become leaders in the corporate building. All of our benefit from our global connected world. That means we all have responsibility to contribute to its well-being. I believe in the mission of the Asian University of Women. I hope some of you will join me in supporting it. But whether you support AUW or some other institution, I hope you will help me encourage charitable giving in Japan. Thank you for your kind acceptance and thank you for your honor. God bless you.
Mr. Andy Matsui, ladies and gentlemen. So, Kathy, at the beginning of your acceptance speech, you mentioned how it was going to be tough for you to get here tonight. Are you happy you made it? But still, you have that. How'd you get the money? I got it from my dad. That's awesome. We're going to talk now about this relationship and about their individual paths as well, by a gentleman who I'm very happy came into my life years ago when I first came to Keizai Society at that time, now evolved to Keizai Silicon Valley. His name is Dr. Richard Dasher, U.S. Asian Technology over at Stanford University, amongst his other many roles. You're the first non-Asian appointed to the board at Tohoku University, is that right? That's outstanding. So, I mean, this is a man, a very humble man, a very soft-spoken man, but a man who I've heard speak in more languages than I can accurately speak in. English being one of those. So, ladies and gentlemen, to do a little fireside chat, please welcome a board member and friend of mine, Dr. Richard Dasher.
So really what this is just a brief wrap-up to what has been said before. And so I have a couple of questions for each of our awardees. I'd like to start, Andy, it's really inspiring to hear your 4 principles. Make your company a good place to work, support your local community, so, always express gratitude for good people and good fortune, and share your good fortune with others. That is really inspiring. Now I gotta ask, in the real world, with the rise of information technology over the last 10 or 15 years, with more intensive global business over the last 50 years. Do you think it's harder to maintain those values now or easier?
You should be try to hard. If you not try hard, nothing come out easy in this world.
So, especially for young people who are starting out, how do you implement these values if you're just starting a company?
You keep in mind always, not sometimes, always you keep in mind those things will be going to happen in a good way.
That's great. Positive attitude. So, if you give the mic to Kathy for a minute, since you mentioned Abenomics a few times, I would like to ask for your assessment of Abenomics and how do you see the Japanese economy from now?
So I get asked this every day. That's my job. So I know there are many opinions, and there are obviously many experts in this room as well. But from my vantage point, and I'm primarily looking at Japan's corporate sector, not the overall society, and I know wages have still not grown, there's still work to be done. But if you look at some of the almost like forbidden areas, I call them, that were tackled so far, one would be corporate governance. Many of you may be familiar, not familiar, but Japan has finally adopted corporate governance standards that are more similar to those of other developed countries. For example, Japan only last year implemented a corporate governance code. Pakistan has had a corporate governance code for many years. Japan only implemented one last year. And I think this really will help make companies more efficient. Hopefully, we have some scandals recently in Japan, as you've heard, more independence on boards. So in other words, making companies run for maybe more shareholders and shareholder value, which is basically investors in Japan, is a good thing. Second, we all know about TPP. That, I think, took a very long time and a lot of negotiations. And one last thing I'll mention is, Japan has a very large fiscal debt problem. But did you know that Japan has the smallest ratio of tax revenues to GDP in the developed world? And many of you know, Japan does not have low tax rates. They have very high tax rates. So what's the problem? The problem is they don't collect taxes very efficiently. For example, we don't have I'm Japanese. In Japan, there's no such thing as a taxpayer ID system. Nobody has social security numbers. So guess what? It's hard to track people. But that's changed this year. We just all received our numbers in the mail. So these are areas, governance, tax reform, TPP, womenomics, that I think relative to other regimes, at least I see a little bit more progress than before.
Thanks. While you've got the microphone, what do you think this means for U.S.-Japan business relationships from now?
I'm very excited because where I sit in Japan, I'm seeing a lot more companies, after many years of very insular, sort of domestic behavior, not really wanting to expand globally. We're seeing a lot more companies, I work at an investment bank, that are approaching us, asking us, do we have any exciting investments or assets or companies that they can invest in? And last year was a record year for outbound M&A from Japanese companies investing abroad. And probably the biggest region was North America, not Asia. So North America is a very interesting and appealing investment destination. So I think that Abenomics has really put a booster under the desire of many Japanese companies to go global.
Thanks. If you give the mic back to Andy for a second. Andy, what is the most important message that you really want to give to someone trying to do good business? Besides the four points that you made, but especially for, I think, young people.
Always try your best. try your best.
Now, when you did this, you had to face some very difficult times, changing the focus of the business from chrysanthemums to roses to orchids. How did you know when it was time?
I'm a professional flower grower. If you watch the market, if seriously you watch the market, you can tell. A lot of people, they don't care until really running out of money. Then going to be worried for the future. That's too late.
That, I think, distinguishes you from a lot of people in business, to really watch what's going on, be able to see what's going on, as well as running your own operations. How did you feel about your family in terms of continuing the business? Now, you joked about no one's going to be in the flower business, but Teresa is going to run the company from now, right?
Yeah, it's profitable business. If
Okay.
it's not a profitable, who's going to take over? So you're going to make a profitable business if you want to keep continuing.
That sounds good. So, how often do you give 7-figure checks to your children?
This is the first time in my life. This business is pretty good now.
But while you've got the mic, I do want to ask you a little bit about the foundation. What do you think will happen with the foundation from now? Do you see it staying on the same track or growing? Or?
Yeah, we need an improvement. We cannot do the old fashion all every years. Society is changing, world is changing, so you have to follow the changes, whatever you're doing.
Okay, if you give the mic back to Kathy. So Kathy, what about the Asia University for Women? Tell us a little bit more about this, and what kind of programs are you running, and it would be nice to hear more about this.
Sure, and again, thanks, Dad. Well, $1 million is a tremendous support for the students we have. It is a liberal arts college based in Bangladesh, but we have about 450 women from a dozen countries, mainly in South Asia, so India, Pakistan, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Burma, Mongolia, and also Middle East, Palestine, Afghanistan, Syria. We have Syrian refugee girls as well. And the whole idea here is, I think that was already described by my father, is, many of you know this, but if you educate a man, you educate a man, sorry. If you educate a woman, you typically educate her family, which means you educate her community. The ripple effects, especially I'm talking about in the developing world, where this has significantly been proven. So what we're trying to do is invest in these very talented young women so that most of them will return to their communities and give back. Most of these women are, in fact, all of them are first-generation university students, so they're the first in their family to go to college. And we have graduated 3 classes so far. I'm saying royally, I only serve on the board, but 80% of our students, our graduates, have gone on to jobs or graduate work. Sherry Blair, Mrs. Blair's wife, is our chancellor, and Mrs. Akie Abe, Abe Shishun Oksam, she is one of our patrons. We know that there are, as my father said, there's a growing, I think, charitable philanthropic movement in Japan, and so I know I've exchanged meishi with some Japanese company representatives in this room. If you are interested, please come and see me. I would be happy to visit your office in Japan to talk about this more, but we're really trying to invest in the next generation of women leaders in Asia.
Thank you. To wrap up this section, I want to ask Mike to come back up to the stage briefly. And you have talked a little bit about how this has impacted the community in Central Valley, Central California. Could you follow up on that just a little bit?
Well, I think we share the common background. I think Kathy and Teresa, you guys grew up on the farm. We'll talk about you guys' farm was 3, almost 4 times larger than our farm, but it's a similar community. And I think that I saw just a little bit of help that we were able to give to the families that worked with us. So grateful, but also their kids were going to college and getting degrees that their parents only dreamed of. And I saw the pride that it brought to their families. And so I can't imagine that what you're doing is paying it forward. But how much of a local impact have you, Mr. Matsui, have you seen the impact of those children coming back to the area, the families? Have you continued relationships with some of the awardees of the grants?
I don't know exactly what's happening after they graduate our program, but time to time we will follow up those people, how they doing, and what they really wanted, and what are we supposed to do. We have to always need a follow-up and the improvement. Like we did regular 4-year college, just giving them money, nothing happened. So if we made a 3-year program for 4-year college system, make a big improvement. So we keep trying to new system all the time. That makes things work better, I think.
So again, we can go ahead and hold on to that. So you're talking about not just throwing the money to solve a problem. You need to help make sure that money lands. It's like growing the flowers. You can't just throw the water, throw the fertilizer, and it'll grow. You have to be constructive, you have to have methodical, and you have to care for that, right? Nurturing. So I see that happening. I see what you've done and brought the values here. So you say I'm just a high school educator. This man is talking about seeing the industry, seeing forward, and seeing the pattern and seeing the change and getting out of that path, getting onto another path when you see that coming. So now it makes perfect sense why the next step would be Kathy, who does the same thing on a bigger level with not just one industry. You're forecasting, you're looking, you're seeing the trends, and you're seeing how to change process once again. You've seen that as well. You nurtured Kathy and Teresa and encouraged them to go through school. That's a huge value with you. So you must have felt that, Kathy, from your parents. Tell me about some of the environment without getting, this family. What was the type of environment? Were you expressly told about the value of education, or could you just feel that came from your parents?
Well, I think that, as first-generation immigrants that our parents were, and observing, as we all did as children, our parents working very close to a 24/7 schedule in the nursery. By the way, one reason why we all wanted to not take on the farm, or most of us, is because we were working on, weekends and summer vacations and Mother's Day, and it was very hard work, and we knew that our parents were working in that very tough business for many years. So part of this, you should get a good education, was coming from, if you don't get a good education, this is the alternative. So that was a motivation strong enough, I think, for many of us to work hard. But I have only 2 children. My mother miraculously raised 4 of us, all healthy, and she wasn't helicopter mom, tiger mom, any of that, and neither was our father. And I'm not quite sure how we came out how we did, but it was just being a model for us. They're also very faithful Christians, and I think that also maybe influenced the way that they brought us up. That you're not born with your gifts. You were given those gifts, and you are stewards of those gifts. And so, responsibility of a steward is to pass those gifts on, to other people. So that, I think, spirit and philosophy was really instilled by our parents in a very big way.
Once again, we salute Mrs. Matsui. What I'm getting consistently, in one way or another, is the value of what we'll call, in the greater term, community. Community support within one another. You're trying to grow that community with your Asian University for Women and the support system there. You're trying to grow this community support with, you mentioned the young male millennials, who if they change their thought process, then it's possible to change the other parts of the related in society. Because without the support of the other partner in a relationship, you can't just change the way, for example, someone mothers or is allowed to mother or work. And then we go back to your father, who job, obviously, of networking together and creating that community for you locally within your family, and then you're growing your community within the Monterey County and within the people in the area. But I want to take it way back to the start of your story then. You talk about being stewards, passing things along. You came over from Japan, businessman, learning a new industry into a new country, and you came on an exchange. To what level did you feel that community within the initial exchange and within the flower growers there?
Yes, we are really welcome the Japanese second generations because they were really interested in what's going on in Japan. We communicated good with those people. When I learned lots of things from the Japanese Americans.
So it seems that you were able to learn and pass back and forth with your colleagues, your community that you had built within the industry.
Yes.
And of course, then I think that what you did in the smaller sense with the individual handshakes and the passing of knowledge back and forth, and the talks over the tables at the board meetings. I think my dad remembers seeing you and seeing you have individual conversations, and Cap Utsunomiya, for example, being a big ally for, I think, all of them. This is the gentleman who ran sort of the general store, I think, where we all got our supplies. And the dangerous chemicals, I think we all played in when we were kids. I remember playing on stacks of what I believe was fertilizer. Mostly okay. But again, at that level, I think, once again, that brings it right back to Keizai, Silicon Valley, because what you were doing right there, what Kathy does by going out, meeting, networking, and talking, and spreading the word in face-to-face relationships, and what we're doing here is all why this community that we're growing is very important. And so I want to thank you for being here and helping these folks understand the value of what you are doing. This is not wasted time after work. Yes, you could click on a button, as we mentioned, for LinkedIn. Sitting across the table or sitting next to one another, these fireside chats, these are invaluable. You are wise beyond anything you know, because this is going to set you apart from your colleagues, as it has set Mr. Matsui and Ms. Matsui apart from their colleagues. Now, they might not realize that at the surface level, but that is one thing that sets them apart. And I hope you take the opportunity to meet as many tonight and to meet them as you're able to spend more time. Thank you for spending so much time with us today. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, Matsui.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I would love for you guys to stay with us because we have Kagami Wari, which is a ceremony. Yes. Yes, exactly. Because we do have the Kagami Wari. So you can go ahead and can you sit there? Oh yeah, please. That's fine. So wherever you want to sit, you're our guest. Let it be noted I didn't make them move anywhere. But we do want to call to the stage one more dignitary before we move on to the Kagami Wari. We have with us we're always treated to the company of the Consul General of Japan in San Francisco. We have Consul General Jun Yamada with us this year. Consul General, is this your first Keizai Silicon Valley? No, second, first one, right? First one, yes. So, Consul General Yamada, I would like to invite you to the stage to say a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the new guy on the block.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a bit belated Happy New Year to you. And after such awe-inspiring, deeply moving moments, I feel like there's a Japanese word called dasoku. That's legs for snake. So, but my people at the consulate say this is really obligatory to make this kind of official speech. So please endure me for a few more minutes. It is my great pleasure to offer my greetings to you for the new year. First of all, I'd like to commend Mr. Andy Matsui, the Orchid King, for being selected as the recipient of the Keizai Silicon Valley Lifetime Achievement Award, and to his daughter, Miss Kathy Matsui, for receiving the Economic Innovation Award. We are so deeply grateful for your unwavering contributions to US-Japan relations throughout your careers. Congratulations to the Keizai Society for over a quarter of a century of promoting US-Japan relations and connecting our two countries through facilitating business exchange.